Global debt has reached unprecedented levels. This is not hyperbole, it is a fact. The numbers are staggering, painting a picture of unsustainable borrowing. Governments worldwide are grappling with massive debt burdens. This is not a new phenomenon, but the scale is different this time. The risks are greater, and the potential consequences are dire. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the situation, as governments borrowed heavily to support their economies. With low interest rates, this encouraged more borrowing. Now, as interest rates rise, debt servicing becomes more expensive, putting pressure on government budgets. The situation is complex, and there are no easy answers. But one thing is clear: we are facing a global debt crisis. We must act now to avert disaster. The time for complacency is over. Government debt is a complex issue with numerous contributing factors. One primary driver is excessive spending. When governments consistently spend more than they collect in revenue, they accumulate debt. This overspending can be driven by various factors, including social programs, military expenditures, and infrastructure projects. Another significant contributor is economic downturns. Recessions and financial crises can lead to decreased tax revenue as businesses and individuals earn less. Simultaneously, governments may increase spending to stimulate the economy or provide social safety nets, further widening the deficit. Political factors also play a role. Short-term political incentives can often outweigh long-term fiscal responsibility. Governments may prioritize popular policies or projects, even if they lead to higher debt levels. Additionally, political instability or gridlock can hinder effective debt management. Furthermore, external shocks, such as natural disasters or global pandemics, can strain government finances. Responding to these unexpected events often requires significant spending, potentially leading to increased borrowing. High levels of government debt can have severe and far-reaching consequences for a nation's economy and its citizens. One of the most immediate impacts is the crowding out effect. As governments borrow more, they compete with businesses and individuals for the same pool of available funds. This increased demand for credit can drive up interest rates, making it more expensive for businesses to invest, and for individuals to borrow for mortgages or other loans. Moreover, high debt levels can lead to a loss of investor confidence. When investors perceive a government's financial situation as unsustainable, they may be less willing to lend money or invest in the country. This can lead to capital flight, currency depreciation, and further economic instability. Furthermore, servicing the debt paying interest and principal consumes a larger portion of government revenue, leaving fewer resources available for essential public services such as healthcare, education, and infrastructure. This can lead to a decline in the quality of these services, hindering economic growth and social well-being. In extreme cases, unsustainable debt levels can lead to sovereign debt crises. This occurs when a government can no longer meet its financial obligations, potentially resulting in default, hyperinflation, and severe economic hardship. Japan serves as a compelling case study of the complexities of government debt. The country has grappled with a high and rising debt-to-GDP ratio for decades, exceeding 250%. Despite this, Japan has avoided a sovereign debt crisis, largely due to unique factors such as a high savings rate among its citizens and the Bank of Japan's willingness to purchase government bonds. However, Japan's experience also highlights the potential pitfalls of prolonged high debt. The country has experienced sluggish economic growth for years, often referred to as lost decades. While the reasons for this stagnation are multifaceted, the immense debt burden has undoubtedly played a role by constraining government spending and potentially discouraging private investment. Japan's situation underscores the importance of fiscal sustainability. While the country has managed its debt burden thus far, its experience serves as a cautionary tale of the potential long-term consequences of high debt levels on economic growth and prosperity. In contrast to Japan, Argentina's experience with high government debt offers a stark warning about the risks of unsustainable borrowing. The South American nation has a long history of economic crises, including multiple sovereign defaults and periods of hyperinflation. Argentina's struggles stem from a combination of factors, including chronic overspending, political instability, and external shocks. The country's repeated defaults have eroded investor confidence, making it difficult to access international credit markets and leading to higher borrowing costs. The consequences of Argentina's debt crises have been devastating for its citizens. Hyperinflation has wiped out savings, eroded purchasing power, and fueled poverty. The economic uncertainty has hindered investment, stifled growth, and led to social unrest. Argentina's experience serves as a stark reminder of the importance of fiscal responsibility and the potential consequences of unchecked government debt. Government debt is not inherently good or bad. It's a tool, like any other. Used wisely, it can be beneficial. Used poorly, it can be disastrous. Debt can be a powerful tool for economic growth. Governments can use borrowed funds to invest in infrastructure, education, and other areas that boost productivity and create jobs. This spending can lead to higher economic growth in the long run. However, excessive debt can stifle economic growth. High debt levels can lead to higher interest rates, crowding out private investment. This can slow economic activity and make it harder for governments to address future challenges. The key is balance. Governments need to find the right level of debt for their specific circumstances. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. But one thing is clear: unsustainable debt is a recipe for disaster. Navigating the complexities of government debt requires a delicate balancing act. Governments must strive to strike a sustainable balance between utilizing debt strategically for economic growth while avoiding the pitfalls of excessive borrowing. This requires prudent fiscal management, responsible spending practices, and a long-term perspective. Transparency and accountability are crucial. Governments must be transparent about their debt levels, spending priorities, and debt management strategies. This transparency allows for public scrutiny and informed decision-making. Accountability mechanisms, such as independent fiscal councils, can provide oversight and ensure responsible fiscal practices. Furthermore, governments should prioritize investments that yield long-term economic benefits, such as infrastructure, education, and research and development. These investments can boost productivity, enhance competitiveness, and create a virtuous cycle of economic growth. Addressing high levels of government debt requires a multifaceted approach, involving both short-term measures to stabilize the situation and long-term structural reforms to ensure fiscal sustainability. In the short term, governments facing acute debt crises may need to implement austerity measures, such as spending cuts and tax increases. These measures can be unpopular, but they are often necessary to restore fiscal balance and regain investor confidence. However, austerity alone is not a sustainable solution. Governments must also implement structural reforms to address the root causes of their debt problems. This includes measures to improve tax collection efficiency, reduce wasteful spending, and promote economic growth. Debt restructuring can also be an option for countries struggling to manage their debt burdens. This involves negotiating with creditors to extend repayment terms, reduce interest rates, or even forgive a portion of the debt. Living in a world grappling with high government debt requires individuals to be proactive and financially savvy. While government policies are outside individual control, taking charge of personal finances can mitigate potential risks and secure a more stable future. Start by building a solid financial foundation. This includes creating a realistic budget, tracking income and expenses, and identifying areas to reduce unnecessary spending. Saving consistently, even small amounts, is crucial for building an emergency fund and achieving long-term financial goals. Next, prioritize paying down high-interest debt, such as credit card balances. High interest rates can quickly erode wealth and hinder financial progress. Explore options for consolidating or refinancing debt to secure lower interest rates and manage repayments more effectively. Addressing the global debt challenge requires collective action and international cooperation. No single country can solve this issue in isolation. Governments, international organizations, and individuals must work together to find sustainable solutions. International organizations, such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, play a crucial role in providing financial assistance, technical expertise, and policy advice to countries facing debt distress. They can also facilitate dialogue and cooperation among debtor and creditor nations. Governments must engage in responsible lending and borrowing practices. Lender countries should avoid predatory lending practices that can trap developing nations in a cycle of debt. Borrower countries must prioritize transparency, accountability, and sound fiscal management to ensure borrowed funds are used effectively. The global debt time bomb is ticking. The consequences of inaction are too great to ignore. We need urgent action to address this crisis before it's too late. This is not a problem for governments alone to solve. We all have a role to play. We need to demand fiscal responsibility from our leaders. We need to be mindful of our own spending and saving habits, and we need to work together to create a more sustainable future. The path ahead will not be easy, but it is a path we must take. The future of our economies and our societies depends on it.